Hello everyone, I am Tanmay and I welcome you all to today's talk on computer science as a career for non-CS students presented by SARC IIT Bombay. The session will be exhaustive, covering various facets ranging from the right courses and projects to multiple options available when pursuing CS as a career. Today we have with us Mr. Aman Goel, an alumnus of our institute who graduated in the year 2017 having completed his BTech degree in computer science. After graduating, he left high-paying job offers from companies like Tower Research Capital and other startups in the US to start his own venture, All in Call. Aman also maintains a blog on technology and computer science, www.amangoel.in. At present, Aman is actively involved in the growth of All in Call, a startup in the enterprise technology space, helping large financial institutions in managing consumer customer experience and customer onboarding using technology. Now, sir, I invite you to enlighten us with your words.
Yeah, thank you, Tanmay. Thank you, everyone, for taking time. So I think some people are mentioning some cannot hear, no sound, etc. Is it fine, right? Are you guys able to hear me out? Am I audible properly? Okay, great. So let's begin. So, guys, I assume that most of the people over here would not be from computer science domain, right? So, okay. So I think this is starting 2017 April when I took a talk in IIT Bombay, organized by some body of the institute. So the idea is that a lot of people who want to build a career in computer science and technology domain, they don't get the right guidance. So in our institute, IIT Bombay, we do have minors, selectives, etc., right? There are all sorts of 50 available minors, competitive programming, data structures, operating systems, and whatnot. The problem statement is very simple. People don't know which courses to take, right? What should be the chronology of the courses? Let's say you are spending time in the first year summers. Should you take an Android development course? Is that the right thing to do? I don't know, right? So that will be the purpose of this talk. So let me share my screen and show you a couple of things. So is my screen visible? Tanmay, is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So this is the resume of a colleague, something similar profile as probably most of you, not from a computer science background, but has done a lot of work, like one software engineering internship, as you can see, uh, where something was done around Django, Postgres, HTML, CSS, right? Then a bunch of projects around face recognition, around a blog application, photo gallery app, multi-processor file server, bookmarks manager, some chatting mechanism, web scraping, basketball score counter. A lot of things are done here, and many courses around computer science, which is cryptology, ML, data structures, programming languages around C, C++. And obviously, the person is not from a computer science domain, as you can see, right? I have deliberately hidden the name of the person. So they are also from an institute as reputed as ours, and they are from a branch which is not from computer science. Having said that, the person is working at a reputable firm, and they are making a very good package, which is probably twice as compared to a typical IITian. Okay, so let's move to the presentation piece. So basically, in this talk, I will try and help you guys get a roadmap of what courses to take or what topics to study in what chronology. So at the end of the talk, what you guys should be aware of, I mean, the key takeaway should be that you should have a layout in front of you, a template or a what do you call this roadmap sitting in front of you. That this is something you should do first. After that, this is what you should do. After that, this is what you should do, and so on and so forth. So a track should be laid out in front of you how you can get a solid career development in the technology domain. So let's start with, I mean, this will be the agenda. First, I will talk about some of the myths in computer science, which I will help you understand, which are really wrong. Second is some of the hot skills in the tech industry. Uh, what should be the things that you should study so that you can end up with a high-paying job? Third is the roadmap itself, and fourth is we'll talk about GSOC, which is an area of interest for many people. Google Summer of Code. Okay, let's begin. So first is busting the myths. So many people have a fear of not learning how to code. Uh, and many people also fear that I'm not from a computer science background, nobody will entertain me. So that's, I mean, today that is very wrong. First is ki if you have done programming in school and you found it horrible because your teacher was not good, etc., etc., you need to change that mindset first of all, because school teachers, frankly speaking, they are not well qualified as compared to, let's say, what you learn in college. I mean, they should not be qualified, right? Uh, in school, you only are supposed to learn. You are supposed to learn some of the basic things, how to program some basic codes, for loop, while loop, etc., etc., which is what they teach you, and frankly they do it quite well. But beyond that they cannot go, because not everyone wants to build a career in programming. So that's why they keep the scope very limited. So don't project that to what actual career in computer science is. You should erase that memory of your school days where teacher was speaking something you do not understand, etc., etc. So anyone can learn to code. Second is tech industry welcomes everyone. So today you can go around and search on the internet. You will find a ton of people who are not from computer science background, chemical engineering, civil engineering, metallurgy, etc. All of these people, they are building a career in the technology sector. They are working as software development engineer in Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and whatnot. So this should be understood very well, that it's not the case now. 10 years ago it was, but now industry needs more engineers than the engineers that are supplied by the academia. So yes, there are 20 lakh, 30 lakh engineers graduating every year, but the good quality of them are only a handful. So that's why I'm saying industry needs more engineers than the number of engineers which are currently there. So that's why there is a demand. Okay. So now the second part is hot skills in the industry. So these are in some ways increasing order of difficulty. The easiest skill, I believe, is web development, which is very high in demand in the market. Uh, so, like for example, if you know how to build a basic website, if you know how to build a backend web application with some database, etc. So, web development is one basic skill which is quite popular in the market. You should definitely try and build skills around that. We will talk about how to do that. Second is Android app development. So because there is a shift from the web world to the Android world, to the mobile world, right? Everybody wants to go to mobile. So that's why companies are also moving to mobile. So Android app development is a very popular skill these days. Android slash iOS, you can say. Third is machine learning, data science, data analytics, AI, NLP, whatever you call it, the entire that world. Uh, Very high paying jobs are emerging in this sector as well. Fourth is a general one, which is problem solving skills. So I have put it at the last. Reason being, I believe a good software engineer should not be tied up to web, Android, or ML, or AI, or blockchain, or AR, VR. They should have general, very strong programming skills, or in general, I would say problem solving skills, which will have very high amount of value in the market. So that is where the goal should be. So you should not be tied up to machine learning, because let's say in 5 years, machine learning becomes outdated. You will become outdated equally fast. So the way you should plan your career is how can you build a general career. So 5 years later, some new technology comes in, you can pick it up quickly. So that is something which has indefinite value, because you can move faster than the market. Okay. So now let's start with the roadmap. This is the most important piece. Uh, it seems like a long roadmap, but I will break it down into small parts and help you understand. Sorry. So the first part is around probability and statistics. So you would have done some work in probability statistics during the JEE preparation days, I assume. So I think it would be a good idea to refresh that. It's very important in the computer science domain to have a thorough knowledge of combinatorics, probability, statistics, etc. There is a beautiful book called Kenneth Rosen. You can note down. I think I will share the notes at the end of this talk, so you don't have to worry. Kenneth Rosen is a fantastic book on probability, statistics, combinatorics, etc. General mathematics for computer science. Okay, so you can study some of the important concepts from the book. It's just a small chapter on probability. So you should know how to measure the number of ways certain things can be done, the probability of some event, mutually exclusive event, independent event. Those are some of the concepts which you should be absolutely familiar with. So they are extremely useful in computer science, because day in and day out you deal with certain situations, corner cases, edge cases, etc. So that becomes extremely important. Okay, so this is one part. Second is around data structures and algorithms. So this is the holy grail of computer science. and a lot of people would have heard of competitive programming, various online judges, etc. So I will talk about competitive programming when I talk about online judges. So for now, let me focus on data structures. So the idea is data structures are very helpful in interview preparation. Companies companies don't know how to evaluate you. You would have written 10 projects on your resume, but who knows whether you have done it or not? One option they have is they can tell you, look, why don't you spend 5 days and build another project for me, which they will provide it to you. So there the problem is companies don't have 5 days of time. In 5 days, they want to hire five candidates. At the same time, a good candidate would not want to spend too much time, 4 days, 5 days building a project. So that way they need a short method, a short and objective method to complete the interview process and the evaluation process. So that's where most of the companies have chosen data structures and algorithms as the area where, I mean, it's as good as a JEE, right? Whatever you learn during the JEE preparation, a large part of it is not applicable in college. But then they can't expect you to learn the college stuff and then apply for IIT Bombay. So that's why they say, ki, look, here is the JEE syllabus, you prepare for it, which overlaps with your college curriculum. And if you're able to do well, we will admit you to IITs. Same way, I mean, it's a parallel analogy, I would say, where if you know the basics of data structures algorithms, you are able to crack interviews of the company objectively in a short span of time. So there are some very good books on data structures. So there is a book called Cormen, CLRS. You can Google it. It's the Bible of computer science and data structures. So frankly, that book goes too deep into the mathematics, etc. I think that is not expected at all. They go into rigorous mathematical proofs, etc., etc. It's not really required. You can skip those parts. So alternatively, there are some good books. There is a book called Kleinberg-Tardos, Klienberg, Kleinberg, Tardos, Tardos. It's a fantastic book. It talks about all of these concepts. The good part about that book is it talks a lot of examples. So while Corman goes into deep maths, Kleinberg Tardos goes deep into the examples and illustrations so that you are able to understand and visualize various situations. It's a fantastic book. You should try it out. So this is the holy grail of, I would say, this is where you should aspire to be, where you know data structures and algorithms in and out. So apart from that, I would say, don't go. I mean, you will find 50 materials on the internet. Stick to one. Don't solve 50 books. Don't solve 50 courses, YouTube videos, lectures, etc. Just focus on one book. My recommendation would be to go with Kleinberg Tardos. It's a fantastic book. Just stick to one book and complete it cover to cover. Skip some irrelevant topics. You may find syllabus, IIT Bombay ka syllabus, etc. on the cse.iitb.ac.in. On that webpage, you will find a lot of curriculum, syllabus, etc. Just focus only on that part. You can skip irrelevant data structures. So that is the second part you should aim for. Then comes the important part of discrete maths. So probability and statistics was one part. Second part is, let's say, combinatorics. Third part is linear algebra. Fourth part is mathematical induction, etc. So that is where discrete maths is extremely important. Again, Kenneth Rosen is the best book for discrete maths. You can study that book. In that book, they have covered a lot of, as I said, I love books which cover a lot of examples and illustrations rather than unnecessary rigorous mathematics. So you don't want another MA 105, right? I'm sure first year students would agree with me. MA 105 is an important and useful course, but limit of x tending to 0, x plus 5 equal to 5. You don't want to sit down and prove that again. So the book avoids all of that nonsense, I would say. It just focuses on examples, illustrations, and focuses a lot on how to apply certain formula or a mathematical equation to a certain situation. So try out that book. You will love it. That's about discrete maths. So note down the topics. One is combinatorics. Second is probability statistics. Third is linear algebra. Fourth is mathematical induction. These four topics you should be absolutely through with them. So I would say these three things you should try and aim to complete in the first year and second year of college. Ideally speaking, probability and statistics could be like a 1 month of journey. Discrete maths would be another 1 month of journey, assuming you spend 2 to 3 hours a day. And data structures and algorithms will be slightly longer. It will be like a 2-month journey. So in 4 months, you should be able to parallelly complete these topics along with your curriculum. So I know you would be studying, let's say you are from mechanical engineering. So you will have your own coursework, course load, etc. But you have to stretch out yourself for another 2 to 3 extra hours. And that's when you will be able to cover up these things in let's say 4 months of time. That should be the ideal target you should carry. So that is the second part. Next comes the online judges part. So this is one of the most interesting things, which is essentially I wanted to talk about competitive programming piece. So solve a lot of problems. So there are some good online judges. One is Spoj, spoj.com. Second is CodeChef, HackerEarth, HackerRank. Codeforces is fantastic. So my suggestion is don't go too deep into competitive programming. It's not frankly required. It's useful, but for the if your target is to get a good tech job, you don't have to be a red on Codeforces, right? You don't have to be very high ranked on Codeforces. So let's say the way I would suggest you should use online judges is as follows: open up Codeforces, sign up on codeforces.com, and solve. Let's say in data structures you have a topic called binary search. So in Codeforces you will find tags, problem by tag. So just pick up 10 problems in binary search, solve them. Next, then pick up, let's say, dynamic programming. Pick up 15 problems of dynamic programming which are tagged on Codeforces as DP and solve them. So that should be the approach. I mean, otherwise you will see a lot of people competing, contests, rating 2200, 2300. I would frankly suggest not getting too deep. Obviously, if you enjoy that, go ahead and do it. But for the purpose of building a career in technology and computer science, I don't think it's required at all. You can just focus on solving 10 problems from Codeforces, 10 problems on one concept. And let's say there are 15 concepts, so aim to solve 150 to 200 problems. That's more than enough. The idea here is not to get into competitive programming, but rather understand the implementation part. So data structures, you would have studied the theory. In online judges, you will just apply that theory. When you should do it, I would say summers is a very good time. Let's say you have completed first year or second year, it's a very good time to dirty your hands in online judges. During the semester, it may be slightly difficult, so you may solve at most 1 or 2 problems a day. You won't get too much time because some problems may require, let's say, 4 hours of thinking. So my suggestion is summer gap, winter gap, which is summer and winter sessions between the semesters. That's a very good time to get into these online judges. So that's a fourth part. Any questions so far? Anyone would like to ask any questions? So Tanmay and Yatin, maybe you can ask the audience. So this is essentially the first year and second year curriculum that I have tried to cover, which should be covered in first 4 semesters. I will take a pause and ask if any doubts, any questions so far.
If anyone wants to ask the question, please ask in the question tab.
Any questions?
Questions. The first one is, why do we need discrete maths for tech job and linear algebra?
Okay, discrete maths and linear algebra is very important. So I'll tell you why. Linear algebra will be extremely useful in machine learning because a lot of machine learning related courses will talk about matrices, matrix multiplication, matrix inversion, etc. So you should have a solid background in linear algebra. Second, in terms of discrete maths, I will tell you why is it useful. So there's a concept in discrete maths called as mathematical induction. You would have studied some of it in class 12th or JEE syllabus. So it's an extremely important concept because mathematical induction, the equivalent of that in the tech world is recursion. Recursion and dynamic programming, they are analogies of each other. And recursion and dynamic programming is it's an extremely important concept in computer science world. So that's why you need to have a good background in maths. Hope that answers the question. Yeah.
People are asking the names of book and 4 different topics which you told in discrete maths.
So one is combinatorics, second is probability and statistics, third is linear algebra, and fourth is mathematical induction. So these are the 4 topics. I hope you would have noted down the names. And talking about the books, one is Kenneth Rosen, Kenneth, Kenneth Rosen, Rosen. Whichever edition you get, that's fine. I mean, there are only marginal differences. That's one book. Second book, this is a discrete maths book, and probability statistics will also be covered in this book. For data structures and algorithms, the book is Kleinberg-Tardos, Klienberg, Kleinberg, Tardos, Tardos. So those are the 2 books for first 3 topics. And for online judges, I would recommend Codeforces or Spoj. SPOJ. Any other question?
No, sir.
So, sir, there is a common question, like there are some PhD and MTech students also present in the talk, along
Sure,
with some third year BTech students. So they want to
sure.
know that if they have any scope in the computer science. So,
See,
like
there
what
is
kind of
no,
jobs they can.
yeah, so I mean, see, frankly speaking, computer science is one job that nobody cares. I mean, you would have had an undergrad degree, right? If you are a PhD or an MTech student, undergrad degree you would definitely have. That is more than enough. You can, whatever I'm telling is a template for anyone. It is equally applicable for a first year BTech student and equally applicable for a third year PhD student or a second year MTech student. So just follow this roadmap. Companies expect you to know this much basic curriculum. They don't care if you are a PhD student or an MTech student or a BTech student. They want you to know how to build a fundamental, what you call as mindset in computer science. So the first row, as you see, is just about setting the basics. Second row will be completely about building your resume, and third row is about interview preparation. So the first row, you in the first row, the entire focus is orient yourself so that you have some basic skills. I mean, just imagine you are taking a course in English and you don't know alphabets. So these are just building blocks and alphabets so that you are prepared. Second part comes is how can you write an essay or a sentence, right? Or a paragraph or a summary. And third part talks about how can you be like a Shakespeare or some famous writer. So this is just a building block. Any year, anything, it doesn't matter. 4 months is all you need to spend, and you will be through with some basic fundamentals of mathematics and I would say programming. I would not even call it computer science because data structures and algorithms is a fundamental concept. When you code it, then it becomes computer science. Otherwise, it's just math. So does that answer the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so shall we move?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Next comes web development. So I would ideally say this all starts in, let's say, fourth or fifth semester. So the first entire row is about first semester, second semester, third semester, somewhat in fourth semester of college, maximum till the end of second year. That's it. That could be your BTech first year, second year, MTech first year, second year, or a PhD. From BTech students, I would say spend 2 years in these activities, first year and second year of college. If you are already in second year, then spend just the second year. Don't spill it over to third year. For let's say MTech students, I would say again squeeze it out in the first year of MTech. Don't extend it to 2 years because you already have some background in computer science, and same for PhD students. Okay. So next comes web development part. So the idea of web development here is so now in the second row, as I told, this is all about building a fantastic resume. Ideally, I would say in one resume, you should have two projects of, let's say, backend development, one project around some front end development or some basic skills, and at least one or two deep tech projects which differentiate you from your other competitors. Okay. So in web development, I would say there is a framework in Python called as Django, Django. It's a fantastic, easy to use web development framework. Just pick up any tutorial on the internet which says Django tutorial. So as I showed you in this resume, you saw. So let me just go back to this resume to see photo gallery web app in Django. It's a simple where what the person has done is Twitter API they have integrated and they have. I mean they will ask a user to enter some hashtag. Call Twitter API to fetch posts and images from the hashtag and render it in a Django web application. That's it. It's a very simple project. Second is a blog application in Django. So again, this is a tutorial you can search on Google. Django Girls tutorial, GIRLS. So Django Girls tutorial. It teaches you how to build a blog application in Django and host it on the internet on pythonanywhere.com. So you can Google this tutorial. It's a very simple tutorial. You can complete it over a weekend. It assumes you do not have any programming background, so it will teach you HTML, CSS basics from scratch. Obviously, you need to have a basic common sense to understand the tutorial. And at the end of the tutorial, you will have a blog application where you can put up a blog post, save it as a draft, add comments, and you can, I mean, if you want to go beyond the tutorial, you can add a like button, unlike button, upvote, downvote, something like that, or a share button. So try to learn by doing tutorials. Don't learn Django by the documentation you are reading. It will waste it will lead to a lot of time wasted. Don't read documentation. Go and pick up a tutorial where you know that at the end of this tutorial, this is the project that I will build. That's it. And follow that tutorial religiously. So this is what I would recommend. These two are great projects in backend development. So understand how a model view controller architecture works. Again, I'm not getting into technical details here. So understand the concept of model view controller architecture called as MVC framework, which is how the Django works. Understand how to build some basic database tables. Understand how to join the tables using foreign key. So all of that will be taught in the tutorial. Any Django tutorial you take, they will cover all of these concepts. So again, don't ask me, ki, Aman, suggest me one tutorial. Go and Google it. A large part of computer science is about just Googling stuff. So just search on Google Django tutorials, web development tutorials. So any framework is fine. Django is something I'm suggesting. You can go ahead with other frameworks like Node.js, Ruby on Rails, um, PHP Code Igniter. Frankly, I would not recommend PHP and all. Relatively outdated languages. Try some new language, JavaScript or Python. Okay, so I mean Java is also fine. Spring Hibernate framework is there. So you search on Google. There are 50 web frameworks. Whichever programming language you are comfortable with, just pick up that. Many people will tell you, why are you doing PHP? Why are you doing Java? Why don't you do Python? Don't listen to them. My suggestion here is, whichever web framework you are comfortable with, whichever programming language you are comfortable with, just pick one and move ahead. Frankly, I mean, you are not building a Google or a Facebook like web application. So people will tell you PHP is not scalable. But then why do you need scale? If you are building a college application with 1,000 college students, you don't need an infrastructure which will scale like Facebook. You don't need that. So whichever language you are comfortable with, just start with that. Just search on Google PHP web framework, Python web framework, sorry, Java web framework. Just pick up one web framework and move ahead. Don't listen to anyone ki ye bekar hai, ye acha hai, not required. So as I said, learn by doing a tutorial. So when you search on the internet how to learn Django, just search for some of the tutorials. As I mentioned, Django Girl tutorial is quite good. So that way, the objective should be to learn the tutorial and at the end of the day have one or two projects which are ready, which you can put in your resume. You can showcase that I know web development, I've done it in Django. You can always apply to a company which uses JavaScript based web framework and tell them, look, I have learned Django, but I have basic common sense. I can learn JavaScript also. I can learn Node.js also. So that should be the approach for web development, I would say. Next, let's try another thing, which is Android app development. So Android is a popular technology, right? Everybody is on smartphone these days. So it's a good technology to learn. Again, we will follow the similar approach, just like Django. Pick up a course, pick up a tutorial, pick up a video lecture, whichever you are comfortable. Pick one. Just pick exactly one and follow it end to end. So there is a very good course, Android for Beginners in Udacity, UDACITY, udacity.com. Android for Beginners course is there. They will teach you Android from scratch. So try some basic projects. Sorry. So as an example, you can try timetable app in Android, time management app, to-do list app, any app, habit tracking app, anything, inventory tracking app, or a wallet, simple wallet application, expense management app. There are 50 ideas you will find on the internet. Pick up one idea, complete the course end to end, and implement a project. So you should know the basics of how Android app development works. Again, in Android, you will find 50 things: native Android, React JS, Flutter, etc., etc. Don't think too much. Just pick one and move ahead. So my suggestion here is, don't tie yourself to a technology. I mean, people will again tell you ki Flutter is new. Why are you doing native Android? That's fine. I mean, native Android, the idea here is to not learn Android app development. The idea here is to learn how to manage a program which has 50 files, how to manage a program which has, let's say, 10,000 lines of code. So Android just happens to be one means. This is again similar to your JEE preparation. In JEE preparation, if someone asks me, what did you learn? I never learned physics, chemistry, and maths. I learned perseverance. I learned hard work. I learned not giving up. I learned problem solving attitude. So that's, it's very similar here. Don't tie yourself to a framework or a technology or a concept. Learn the fundamentals. How do you manage 1 lakh lines of code? How do you manage? I mean, you are given a code base and told ki build a feature on top of it. You should be able to do that. That's the idea. It should be immaterial, whether it is Android, whether it is Java, whether it is JavaScript, whether it is Python. Your focus should be on learning concepts rather than a tool or a technology or a programming language or a framework. So that's why I would say, pick up native Android, Flutter, React Native, whichever you are comfortable with. Just pick up one Android development framework and start developing in that and build a small mobile application. So it could tie to a backend server. So for example, Facebook, right? Facebook is not on your smartphone. It fetches data from the server. The data is on the backend web application. So as an example, the blog application that you developed in Django Girls tutorial, can you replicate that on your smartphone as an Android app? That is one very interesting idea. So now in your mobile app, you can see the blog post that you entered in your web development course, which is when you developed a Django app. Can you tie it up so that in front end all the blogs are rendered on the mobile app? So something of that project would be something of that sort would be very interesting. So expense tracker, time management, to-do list, anything you can think of, temperature tracker, height tracker, habit tracker, food tracker, calorie counter, fitness app, any app you can think of, you can build it. A live chat application between your friend and yourself, a social media platform. 50 ideas are there. Pick one and build it end to end. Host it on GitHub so that tomorrow when somebody asks you, how did you do it? Can you show me the code base, etc., show it to them. So that's about Android app development. Again, just to repeat, Android for beginners course on Udacity, Udacity. Sure. Okay. So now let's move to machine learning. So Android and web development should be your goal in ideally fourth and fifth semester, which is like after you have done some competitive programming, online judges and all. Next comes the topic of machine learning. It's an interesting topic, very hot in the market these days. So my suggestion is there are hundreds of tutorials, hundreds of thousands of tutorials on machine learning. Don't get bogged down seeing so much of content. Convolutional neural network, recurrent neural network, BERT, which is by a new model by Google, NLP framework. Don't get into that. Your idea should be to focus on one small segment and learn the basics of it. You don't have to build a specialization in NLP or AI or computer vision. If time permits, you can do that. But my suggestion is build some fundamentals. So there is a very interesting quote by Andrew Ng, Andrew, Andrew Ng, on Coursera, Coursera. I'm sure you would have heard of that course. It's a very popular course. Just take that basic course. It's very interesting, simple course. It teaches you some of the basic algorithms. And at the end of the course, you will complete a project on handwritten digit recognition. So there is a famous data set called as MNIST dataset, which contains labeled handwritten digits. So just a nine is written and again as a handwritten digit, and against that, this is 9, this is 8, this is 1. So that kind of labeled data set is there. So the course teaches you how to build algorithms on this data set, support vector machines, neural networks, linear regression, logistic classification. So all those topics are covered as a part of this course. So first complete that course, I would say, so that you know the basics of machine learning, how it works, what are the benefits, what problems can it solve, what problems it cannot solve. Once you are done, implement one project. Just one project is enough. So there is a website called Kaggle, Kaggle, Kaggle.com. It contains thousands of data sets. So for example, credit card fraud detection data set. So they will have details of a person, how much was the person's age, how much was the age, salary, transaction amount, date of birth, etc. All these parameters are there. And against that, it was written whether this person conducted a fraud or not. For example, fraud could be I bought a credit card, I used it to purchase something, but I didn't pay my EMI. I didn't pay my credit card due amount. So banks want models, machine learning models, which can predict, should I issue the credit card to Aman or should I not? If I should issue, then what should be the limit? Should it be 1 lakh? Should it be 2 lakh? 5 lakh? What? So just pick up one data set, one meaningful problem from Kaggle, and build a machine learning model around it. Try it out on different algorithms which you learn as a part of Andrew Ng's course. So try out linear regression, try out logistic classification, try out support vector machine, try out neural networks. All the algorithms that you've learned, try it out and build a very simple report saying ki when I applied this algorithm, this was the accuracy, this was the precision, this was the recall. So these fancy terms which I'm saying, you will learn it as a part of the course. So what were the metrics that you found when you applied so and so algorithm on so and so data set? These are some of the things that you should build a report, a simple one-page report. So tomorrow, the idea is in the interview, if interviewer asks, what did you do as a part of this project? What algorithms did you use? What was the accuracy? You will show your report card saying, sir, look at this. This is what I did, and these were the results. So that is the idea of this course. So one is take up a course, learn the fundamentals. Second is implement one project. Okay, one simple project which explains the fact that you have used multiple algorithms and measured the pros and cons. That's it. Nothing extra is required. You are not supposed to know about NLP, computer vision, automated speech recognition. Those are good to have at your level. If you have time, go ahead and study. But if you don't have time, you are not at a disadvantage. So that should be the approach for machine learning. I will talk about other skills now, and I will then again take a pause before we move on to the final section. So there are some other interesting skills in the market. So let's say you're not too excited about web, Android, or machine learning. So what else do you want to try? So one is cryptography. It's a very interesting domain. Considering that the world is now moving towards digital, the number of digital frauds, the number of scams are increasing. So cryptography is also becoming very hot in the market. How can I ensure that my security systems are safe? Network level security, infrastructure level security, hardware level security, all of these things are picking up in the market really fast, right? How to build algorithms which are secure so that a hacker or an interceptor does not get the data. So that is one area where you can try out a lot of stuff. Again, on Coursera, Udacity, if you search, you will find 50 courses. Pick one course and complete it end to end. So I would again repeat it. Always pick one course, one tutorial. It is immaterial which you pick it because all of them are almost equally good. But complete it end to end before jumping onto something else. You don't want to solve 10 easy problems. You want to solve 10 problems of varying difficulty. So, I mean, this is the same advice we used to get in JEE days, right? Don't solve HC Verma, DC Pandey, Irodov, Resnick Halliday, etc., etc. Don't solve 50 books. Pick one book and complete it end to end. That's a recommendation most people give. Same thing I would suggest here. Pick one course, pick one end to end. Don't jump. So cryptography is one very important skill today. Second is if you want to go around machine learning specializations. Let's say you have time and you want to try out. One is natural language processing, which is about how to make sense of text-based data. So let's say Twitter sentiment analysis, chatbots, right? Automatic email complaint reply. So let's say companies get a ton of emails, customer asking about bank statement, customer asking about bank account balance, etc. So how can you read that data and take actions? So that's the second part around machine learning and NLP. Then is computer vision. It's a very interesting domain. Self-driving cars and the entire world that works heavily on computer vision. It's a very interesting area. Then comes speech recognition. So Google speech to text, I'm sure you would have heard Alexa, Google Assistant and all. They heavily rely on conversion of speech into text. So, sorry, in the industry, they are spending a ton of money building automatic call centers. So in a call center, when you call, a bot is talking to you as compared to a human. So that requires very heavy expenditure on building a very robust speech to text system. So those are another areas of exploration. You can try them out. I mean, these are again 3-4 things I'm mentioning. You search on Google what all other avenues are there and find courses on the internet. So your approach, as I said, should not be tied to one technology. Whatever you like. I think some people mentioned about gaming, animation. Just search on Google. You will find 50 courses on animation, 50 courses on gaming. Search for their reviews and pick one course and start and complete it end to end. So all of these avenues you can try. Each of them has equally good job opportunities. So at a fresher level, I mean, it doesn't matter. They also know that if you have done web development, you would have done hardly 2 simple projects. Or if you have done machine learning, you would have done hardly 1 or 2 simple projects. So nobody is going to say, look, you are a web developer, I will pay you lesser salary as compared to ML engineers. That happens 2 to 3 years down the line. It does not happen on day one after college. So you should be flexible in that. So again, before moving ahead, I will take a pause. Any questions you guys have? Anything you would like to ask? Happy to discuss.
Yes, sir. There is one question.
Sure.
What should be the pathway for a non-CS guy to end up in MS or PhD in top universities like MIT or Stanford?
Frankly, I'm not the right person to answer that. I never applied for MS or PhD or anything. So I'm not in a position to answer that question. I think this whole talk is more focused around job or entrepreneurship or the tech world. which is on the industry side as compared to academia. So let's leave it for another person to answer that.
Okay. Sir, rest of the questions are almost answered. Which
Sure. Okay, great.
So Yatin wants to make an announcement.
Sure.
So we will try to provide you with the video of the session. And so many of the students are complaining that they don't have proper net connections at their home. So it would be preferable if you will turn off your video.
Okay. You're asking me to turn off my video, right?
That's all.
Yeah, just one
So
second.
can we
Is that
continue?
fine? Is my video off?
Yes,
Is
sir.
the video off?
Yes,
Okay,
sir,
great.
yes.
Sounds good. So shall we continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now let's move on to internship. So while applying for internship, really two things will
Yes,
be
sir.
very useful.
Yes,
The
sir.
row number 2 will be extremely useful when you are applying for an internship at a company to get your resume shortlisted. So companies will shortlist your resume based on what you have written on row number 2. Nobody will look at your resume and say, wow, this person has done a data structures course, let's hire them for a software development job. They will look at your resume and they will say, yes, this person has done a course on web development, or they have implemented an Android app, or they have done a machine learning project. Basis that, they will shortlist your resume. That is very important. So your first cut would be recruiters will look at the keywords on the resume. They will look at certain skill set, web development, Android app. So is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So as you can see in this resume, they have mentioned a lot of stuff: C, C++, Java. So I think this is fine. This is more. Don't worry about writing 50 languages. Companies know that if you know C, C++, you can always pick up Java and Python. So don't worry about writing 50 things. But as you can see, you have to have a skills section on your profile where you can mention about all these things. Okay. So this is the first part, which is getting resume shortlisted. Second is the interview process. Sorry. In a typical interview, you will have two rounds for an internship. One round will be a screening round, which will be purely based on data structures and algorithms. So they will ask you questions about binary search, sorting algorithms, dynamic programming, graphs and trees, binary tree, binary search tree, arrays, vectors. So you should be absolutely familiar, because if your resume is shortlisted, you want to make sure that you also pass the screening round. So like I'll tell you, in my company, what we do is when I post on LinkedIn or Facebook, we get like 3,000 resume in one shot. So it's very difficult. All the 3,000 resumes, they will have some or the other project. They will look good. So HR doesn't have time to screen through them. So we straight away conduct a test on HackerRank, where we ask questions on data structures and algorithms and pick up the, let's say, top 20 candidates for interview. So that is extremely important. One is resume shortlisting, which will happen based on the content you mention in on your resume on row number 2. Second is screening round clearing, which will be data structure and algorithms based. Third is a final round of interview, a formal interview, which could be another data structures round, or which could be a mix of where the recruiter is asking you about all of your projects. So don't fake the project section. They will actually pick up one project and they will ask you to explain the details. So at that time, you need to be presentable. You should talk. You should be able to talk about the project, what you did, how did it work, what are the challenges you faced. You should walk them through the source code. In fact, you should host the project somewhere so that you can show it to them. Let's say somebody says, "Can you show what you did in this blog application?" So at that time, you should say, "Sir, let me share the link with you. You can try it out." That builds a lot of confidence. You will have obviously you will also have a story to tell about. So they will ask you, what all did you learn in machine learning? So you can talk about the concepts which you learned in Andrew Ng course. Then they will say, can you show me some implementation that you have already done as a project? So that's when you can show the MNIST data set. Then they will say, can you tell me a comparison of algorithms whichever you would have implemented? That's where you will show the presentation I talked about, right, with all the 10 algorithms, 5 algorithms you have implemented. So you should have substance and material to talk about your projects. All these things that I talked about, you should be able to present it clearly and with confidence. They will have, frankly speaking, if you have cleared the screening round for an internship, mostly they would want to check if you are lying on your resume or not. That's why they will ask a lot of questions from your projects and internships, existing internship if you have, from that section. That's it. You just need to convince them that look, I am not lying. They will hire you. I can assure you. Nobody expects at a fresher level that they would know deep web development or an expert in machine learning. They just want to make sure whatever you have mentioned on your resume, you are not lying. Okay, so that's about the internship part. So again, I will take a pause. Any questions on internship part? So okay, yeah, I missed out one part. Applying for internship. So I would say one is if you are from IITs, go and tap the alumni network. It's very useful. Start messaging a couple of alumni on LinkedIn. Let's say somebody who's working at Google. Why don't you drop them a polite text, dear sir or ma'am, I'm your junior from IIT Bombay. I am pursuing this, and I have done so and so things. Please find attached a copy of my resume. It would be great if you can refer me within your organization. I understand you don't know me personally, but I will make sure that I am taken through the process where I clear the interviews. Your referral will help me bypass the resume shortlisting phase. You need to give them the confidence. See, nobody wants to refer unknown people. That's where you need to be smart and tell them, look, when you are referring me, you are just bypassing my resume shortlisting phase. You are not telling Sundar Pichai to select me. Right? You should tell them that Sundar Pichai is not selecting me based on your referral and then later hammering you that you hired and you referred me an idiot person. You should tell them Google will take me through the normal process of interviews and all. Just help me connect with the recruiter. That's it. That will be really useful. So that way they won't feel defensive that they are referring a wrong candidate and tomorrow they may face consequences of that. Fine. So that's one part. Second is there are good platforms. AngelList is there. Your what you call as LinkedIn is there. So use those network and platforms. I would avoid any Internshala or any Naukri.com. They are horrible platforms. Frankly, I tried Internshala both on as a candidate, as a job applicant, and as a company who is hiring. I did not find it useful at all. AngelList is quite good, and LinkedIn is I would say second number. So you can use one of these platforms. So anyway, I'll take a pause because this is internship is an important concept. I'll take a pause and I'm open for questions.
Yes, sir, there are few questions. The first one is, are Coursera and Udemy certificates valuable in landing tech jobs or internships?
Avoid certifications. Frankly, if your biggest certificate is IIT Bombay degree, I know there are people from this webinar is now open for everyone now. So if you are from a good college, avoid certificates under any circumstance. They are completely useless. So don't pay a penny in certifications, I would say. And second is if you're not from a tier 1 college, whatever they call it, right? Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. It's bad. It should not be named that way. But anyway, let's say if you're not from IIT Bombay, then what? So in such situations, still avoid certifications. The best certificate would be that you have completed these projects. So interviewers are smart. I mean, I'll tell you what, I recruit a lot of candidates. I have interviewed people who had some cybersecurity certification for 6 months. They did not know the full form of AES, which is a very standard encryption algorithm. So, I mean, as a company, we don't value certificates at all. We will ask you 10 questions. If you're able to answer, we will hire you. If you're not able to answer, go and put that certificate in the dustbin. Avoid certificate. Don't pay money on certificates. Learn skills now, build projects. So the best certificate is when you're able to tell the recruiter, look, tell the interviewer, look, I wrote web development on my resume. This is what I did. And here is an evidence of that. And please ask me any questions you may have. I will be able to explain you correctly. That's the best certificate. So nobody looks at, so if you look at this resume, do you find any certificate? I don't think so. There are 0 certificates on this resume. Nothing, 0. No point putting certificate. Nobody cares. IIT, I mean, a reputed IIT name is enough as a certificate. And if you're not from IIT, your project should talk about it, right? You should have 10 projects written on your resume which convey that, look, I know these things, I have done work. Nobody needs certificates. Does that answer the question?
Yes, sir. There is one more question. Is Python sufficient to learn DSA or should we learn in the C++?
I would recommend C++, not Python. Python is not meant for DSA, and traditionally For all the DSA related activities, C, C++, Java have been the go-to languages. So recruiters might, or the interviewer might freak out if you start coding a dynamic programming algorithm in Python. Avoid that. I mean, it's not, again, as I said, I'm contradicting myself because I said don't tie yourself to a technology. But let me explain why I am saying that here, that you should do C, C++, or Java. It's a recruiter mindset. The person on the other side of the table, they would have done competitive programming in either C, C++, or Java. So that's what they will expect from you. So it's just a small mindset issue. It's not a technology issue at all. Python is equally good. It's quite good for large scale computations and all. It simplifies the coding thing. But that's what recruiters don't want. They want to see if you are given bare minimum tools of C, C++, Java, can you code it? Because let's say you want to multiply two integers of thousand digits each. In C, C++, you will have to write a lot of code. In Python, it's like A into B. So, I mean, the whole purpose of testing your knowledge, that can you multiply two numbers of 1,000 digits each in C, C++, the whole purpose is defeated because Python will give you a library of it. So don't use Python for data structures and algorithms. Learn either C, C++, or Java. Among C, C++, I would recommend C++ because C is too old school. Sorry, yeah.
Yes. So the next question is, can a course on AWS help for ML?
No, not at all. AWS is not ML. AWS is using ML APIs and ML libraries. You are not, when you use Amazon AWS face recognition, you are not coding your own face recognition algorithm. You are just using something off the shelf and tying up API. So I will categorize that as web development rather than ML.
Yes, sir.
I mean, tying up API is not machine learning, right? You haven't coded the face recognition algorithm. You haven't gone through that journey where you aggregate data, you clean up data, you visualize the data, and then you train it on multiple algorithms. Not doing that if you're using Amazon AWS. I think for face recognition, they have something called as Rekognition, Rekognition. So if you're using that, it's web development, it's not ML.
Yes, sir. Some students are not able to reach for CS minor due to CPI restrictions. Any suggestion on that?
Not required. Not required. CS. Why would you want to do CS minor? Nobody cares. Again, as I said, row number 2 is the most important row. If you have 5 good projects on your resume, nobody cares if you have done CS minor or a CS certification or a course or curriculum. Nobody cares. Just show them the project and show them that, look, I have done all of these things without any help from anyone, and I can do anything you want. I am agile, I am flexible, and I can learn any new tool and technology. This is the message that should go in the interviewer's mind at the end of the interview. That's it. Nobody wants to see CS minor from IIT Bombay. Why would they care? I mean, as a company, we don't look at it. And frankly, I'm not taking myself as an exception. I am connected to some 200 entrepreneurs from the IIT Bombay ecosystem, including the likes of founders of Vedantu, founders of Chayos. There's a WhatsApp group for all 320 entrepreneurs from IIT Bombay. Nobody cares about these things. People, in fact, for certain roles, we just open up for everyone. I mean, why? And certain roles, in fact, I have restricted that I don't want computer science people to apply. No reason, just because I want to give opportunity to everyone. So just avoid all of that. Don't think too much about certification, minor, course. Focus on the other part: projects, internships, what you call as some tool and framework learned and put as a part of your resume. So focus on that part. Practical experience is more important than some vanity metric in the form of a course.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There are a few more questions. Are internships enough to get test of corporate world before starting our own startup?
Yes, obviously. I mean, it's a very vague question. Whenever someone says, is it enough? No, nothing is enough in this world. There is no thumb rule. So I would disqualify this question in some ways. But to answer that question, see, internship is the bare minimum experience you can get in the corporate world, as you call it. But I would say startups is a different thing. In an internship, what will you do? Let's say you are a software engineering intern. You are going and writing code, right? That's it. That's all you have learned. in a startup, let's say as an entrepreneur, what all I'm doing. I used to write code. I used to sell. I used to do customer success. I used to do customer support. I used to hire. I used to fire. I'm doing office negotiation. I'm taking a talk over here. I'm talking to my advisor. I'm raising funds. I have an incubator. There are 50 things that I'm doing. Coding is just one part of it. So if you say, is that enough? No, not at all. Nothing is enough for entrepreneurship. Writing code does not mean you can go and run a startup. Writing code is nothing. I would say in my tech company, writing code has 15% value. If nobody is selling it, what will you do with that code? If you are not building a team around it, what will you do with that code? So it's a very, very, very small part of the entire startup thing. So let's leave startups and other discussions for another talk.
Yes, sir. Sure. One more question is,
Yeah.
what about the topics like computer networking, operating systems, DBMS? Are they needed for placement preparation?
Not really. I would say they are good to have. So let's say this person, for example, they have a coursework written here, a multi-process file server, multi-threaded client, etc., etc. This is fine. I mean, if you have some time, if time permits, you can take up some online course on database or operating system. But frankly, it's not required. I would say go for a. I mean, when you learn Django web development or an Android app development, they will teach you some basics of database as a part of the course. That is sufficient. If you have time, why not? I mean, if you have time, do everything you can. But if you don't have time, that's fine. Just whatever you have done in Django web development, you have built a basic database which is storing blog post, name of the author, title, number of upvotes, comments. That's more than enough.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One more question. What courses do you suggest to students who want to pursue a career in data science?
I think Andrew Ng's course is more than enough to begin with. I mean, that's just to begin with. Obviously, it's the surface only. At the most, if you are interested, you can take up a couple of AI machine learning courses on Udacity, UDACITY, udacity.com. They have quite a few paid courses, but frankly, you need to pay only if you want a certificate. So there is a free version of the course as well. So you can do the free version. There are many courses online. Eduonix is there, Udacity, Coursera, Udemy. Just search and pick up one or two courses and start. That's it.
Okay, sir. Sir, there are no more few relevant questions. We will be getting some in while.
Sure. So now let's move to interview preparation for placements. So I think one very important aspect of interview preparation is being able to solve problems quickly. So again, as I said, a large part of, so let's talk about two ways. One is campus recruitment, other is off-campus recruitment. So in campus recruitment, the way placements work is you will be shortlisted on the basis of CPI or on the basis of resume. So in computer science department, a large part of shortlisting happens looking at the CPI because everyone has the same resume, right? I would have done same courses as my colleague. I would have done same projects as my friend. So I can't show something different. So the way they do it is they will say, let's shortlist these guys by their CPI. So, but that's what something you need to avoid because that's a commodity, right? CPI. I mean, if you're doing so much of side work apart from your department, your CPI is going to get a hit. So that's where you need to create a right balance. You need to have good projects, otherwise all the hard work you do, it will go waste. So make sure you have projects on your resume so that interviewers or the recruiter they will look at your projects over and above your CPI. So even though let's say you are below the 8.5 CPI cutoff, which most companies have, they will still look at your resume and say, look, this is interesting. Let's just interview this candidate. They have done a lot of work beyond the curriculum. So that's for the campus recruitment part. For off campus, nobody cares about CPI. If you have some IIT something mentioned, I mean, forget CPI, nobody cares unless it is like 4-pointer, 3-pointer out of 10. Don't mention it in that case. So it should not be exceptionally bad. Any moderate CPI 7 to 10 is fine. Nobody cares. So that's one part. Second is the interview itself. So in the interview, expect a lot of rounds on data structures, algorithms, fundamentals of programming and all. So there is a platform called InterviewBit, BIT, interviewbit.com. It's a fantastic platform, free to use, solve as many problems as you can. So that way you will be thorough with all the concepts of all the common, they contain a repository of all the common questions of Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, Falana, Dikana, whatever companies you can think of, right? It's a repository of all the questions as an online judge. So just solve as many problems as you can in the final interview preparation. It will be extremely important because companies will take data structures round. They will come to your resume, machine learning, web development in the last round. In the first few rounds, you will be grilled on data structures and algorithms. So interview bit is the best platform to prepare for that. There are others, as I said, lead code is there, etc., etc. You can try them out. If you want to go beyond interview bit, there is a book called Cracking the Coding Interview. So it has been written by someone who is a tech recruiter, Gail Lackman McDowell. It's a fantastic book. It will help you summarize all the concepts, and then it contains a lot of problems, which are most common in the industry. Again, it's a book version of Interview Bit, or I can say Interview Bit is a practice version of the book, because Interview Bit came later, book came first. So definitely go ahead and solve that book. It's a fantastic book. So my suggestion is, if you are constrained on time, just focus on Interview Bit. If you have extra time, then pick up the book. Otherwise, don't pick up the book. So that's about interview preparation. All the data structure and algorithm stuff will be covered. And lastly, for the last round of interview, you should be very thorough with your all the projects. You should be able to convey what you did in that project, who were your colleagues with whom you did that project, what was your contribution, what tools, technologies, frameworks did you use, what are the challenges you faced in the project, how did you counter those challenges, what were the end results of the project. So focus on those numbers, focus on that data. So I mean, whatever I just mentioned, that's a part of final touch. So prepare a good resume. There are some good templates. This template you can search on Google. You will get 50 such resume templates. Make it presentable, make it look good. 1 or 2 page resume, both are fine. I would recommend, if you have done a lot of work, make a 2 page resume and follow the same format. Education, then comes experience, which is where all you have done internship. Third is the projects part, which is what all projects have you done. These dates are fine. You can mention them. It's optional, up to you. Then you can talk about relevant coursework. So see, as you can see, this person has also mentioned independent coursework, Udacity. This is fine. This is good to mention. People would love to see that you have gone a step ahead to take up these courses. Okay, so again, they are not certificates, but they are just courses completed without any certificate. Then you should mention about skills, what all you know, what all programming languages, tools, framework you already know. So again, as I said, whether you write Java or you write Python, it doesn't matter. What they want to see is, do you know programming languages? Do you know a web framework? So instead of Django, this could be Node.js, which is fine. And these achievements and all, they are good to have. Nobody cares. So as you saw, extracurriculars and all haven't been written because in the tech world, nobody cares about extracurriculars. So no point wasting time in building a section around POR, position of responsibility, as they call it in the IIT Bombay lingo, POR. Or you are writing ki I was a first ranker in my dance competition. Nobody cares, right? Do you know how to write code? Yes, we will hire you. Dance competition ki kisi ko nahi padi hai. Nobody cares about that. So just be wary of that. If you are applying for such tech roles, make sure you don't mention irrelevant skills. Do not write MS Excel, Word, or PowerPoint in your resume. It leads to a negative impression. I know that PowerPoint is a good skill. I know MS Excel is a good skill. But again, you are applying for a tech position. Why don't you have Django mentioned on your resume? When you are writing Excel, PowerPoint, it looks like you ran out of skills. You did not learn anything. So just to fill up the resume, you wrote MS Excel and PowerPoint and what not shit. Don't write that. It leads to a negative impression. Okay, so that's extremely important as a part of the resume shortlisting process. Second thing, as you saw in this resume, keywords have been highlighted: Postgres, Django, Tornado server, WebSocket. As you can see, Python. So these are very useful because nobody has time to go through these resume. I mean, like I'll tell you, as a startup, we get 3,500 resumes every month. So for me, it's very difficult to analyze each and every one. So to the HR, I tell them to look at the keywords and shortlist accordingly. Android किया है क्या? हाँ, ठीक है, shortlist कर लो. Something like that is what we do. So make sure you have those keywords highlighted as a part of the resume. तो जैसे यहाँ पे एंड्रॉइड दिख गया ना, बस ठीक है, शॉर्टलिस्ट कर लो, कुछ तो किया है, बाद में देखेंगे, इंटरव्यू में देखेंगे, मतलब रेज्यूमे. सो मेक श्योर यू हाईलाइट दीज कीवर्ड्स एज अ पार्ट ऑफ रेज्यूमे. यूज अ डिसेंट टेम्पलेट जिसमें जिसमें खाली बहुत सारी एम्प्टी स्पेसेस नहीं होनी चाहिए. इट शुड फिल अप द रेज्यूमे कंप्लीटली. So yeah, that's about the final touch. And lastly, for a tech job, as I said, referrals लगाओ, अपने दोस्तों से बात करो. You apply on AngelList, apply on LinkedIn, post on LinkedIn, talk to your friends and colleagues, talk to some recruiters. So, I mean, this is a hard work you will have to do. इसका कोई shortcut नहीं है. ये मत सोचना कि तुमने इतना कुछ कर लिया है तो बैठे बैठाए जॉब लग जाएगी. Don't think it that way. If you don't, nothing will be served on your plate. You will have to apply to 50 companies to get a job. So that should be fine. Matlab, it's a hard part of the process. You have done so much of hard work. This is the last leg of the hard work which you have to do. So yeah, that's it. Happy to take any questions. I have a couple of slides left. I think GSOC पे एक slide है. Before that, I'm happy to take questions.
Yes, sir, there are a few questions. You said that being raid on code forces is not necessary.
Right.
But does having a good rating help?
Yes, it will help. Matlab, if you have time, it will definitely help you because I mean, clearing the interviews will be very easy, and quite a few companies they give weightage to good competitive programmers. So it does help.
Yes, sir. So the following question is, if we do self projects, then we won't be having certificates as proof. So how does it help in resume?
So as I told you, it's not required at all. I mean, if you look at this resume, why would you want to see the certification? Why has this been done? So long as you are able to see, fine, they can code a blog application and they have done Django, etc., etc. Why do you need a certificate? So nobody cares, as I told.
Yes, sir. The subsequent question is, people say that a person who wants to pursue a career in IT is too busy during their college life. To what extent is this true?
Sorry, can you repeat? I missed it.
Okay, sir. People say that a person who wants to pursue a career in IT is too busy during their college life. To what extent is this true?
See, you have to be busy, right? I mean, it's better to be busy than free. So it's true to a large extent because, I mean, that's the sacrifice you have to have. कुछ पाने के लिए कुछ खोना पड़ता है. So if you are thinking कि without any hard work, you will be able to do some side work and get a good tech job, it doesn't work. So you have to be busy in the college life, no doubt.
Yes, sir. One more question is, how do the non-CS students perform in job interviews compared to CS students? Also, what is the outlook of hiring companies when they are looking for non-CS students?
So I'll tell you in my company, I am from the computer science background and I do sales. Vikash is from chemical engineering, he's a software engineer. Pankaj is from electrical engineering, he's a software engineer. Shivam is a mechanical engineer, he does sales. Raj is a software engineer, he's doing project management. Devabrata is a mechanical engineer, he's doing customer success management. So I would say it doesn't matter, right? Non-CS, CS, these are just terminologies. At the end of the day, how passionate are you about the work? How well are you prepared? That will get reflected in your interviews. So there is no thumb rule which says CS guys perform better than non-CS guys in the interviews. No, we have had brilliant guys who have had brilliant coding skills and who don't have a computer science background at all. I mean, they haven't done a BTech in computer science. तो कोई thumb rule नहीं है.
Yes, sir. The next question is, if some has no internship at the end of 4 years, so how much that plays a parameter for recruitment, given he's not from tier 1?
Yeah, so I think if you don't get a tech internship after doing this much of work, you should really reconsider, because I mean, this will get you an internship. There are so many tech jobs lying out there. If you haven't got an internship after doing this much of work, you have done something seriously wrong. So you should rethink. So that is what my thought would be. After doing this much, you will get an internship. नहीं मिल रहा है तो मतलब कुछ तो लाइफ में एकदम गिव अप कर दिया है. You would have done something very bad. So you should start looking at your fundamentals. You should start questioning your existence, I would say. मिल जाएगा. इतना करने के बाद definitely you will get an internship. If not, then you have just wasted time. You have not done something properly.
Yes, sir. The next question is third year too late to start with coding and all?
Not really. मतलब third year, fourth year, 2 साल काफी है. More than enough.
Yes, sir. There are no relevant question right now. We might get in some time.
Sure. So last is GSOC. Many people ask me कि Google Summer of Code कैसा है, etc., etc. So I think it's quite good. I mean, GSOC requires a lot of time. So don't do a parallel internship. Either do internship or do GSOC. Don't do two things at the same time. Honestly, I haven't applied for GSOC before, so I'm not the right person to comment on that. But definitely GSOC is seen very highly in the resume. If somebody has done a GSOC, I would shortlist that person immediately, because in some ways GSOC has an ecosystem of very good companies. So if one of these companies is shortlisting the candidate, I will anyway shortlist them. So yeah, that's about the short thing on GSOC. It's quite good. It's quite a decent program at the college level and teaches you a lot of things. The only downside is that it's a remote internship kind of thing, right? So I would not encourage remote. I know at this time of pandemic situation, people are forced to go into the remote mode, but the learning experience is remote is much lesser than the interactive experience when you meet people, when you share ideas, when you chit chat with them, when you meet them over lunch and have discussions. So that experience you won't get in GSOC. So I would prefer a formal internship as compared to GSOC. But having said that, GSOC is quite good. I will shortlist a GSOC candidate any day. So that's it. I mean, the talk is over. Mostly, I mean, it's all about questions now.
So we have got some questions collected now. The first question is, can you repeat the name of sites for internships?
AngelList, and the other one is LinkedIn. I mentioned it in the chat.
The following question is, can a non-CS guy intern in companies like Google and Amazon? What are steps to be followed? Is there a natural bias towards CS guy in those companies?
Frankly, there is no natural bias or something like that. But yes, these companies do hire a lot of non-CS people. I mean, it's not something new. Companies do hire a lot of non-CS people, so that's absolutely fine. So I mean, you don't have to worry too much about CS, non-CS. Today, so long as you have completed the right curriculum, companies are very open to such kind of. I mean, companies are very open. They don't care about the degree and all.
So the next question is, what are some decent sites to take some projects from?
Udacity is there, Coursera. I'm just mentioning it in the chat. Coursera is there, Edwonix is there, Udemy is there. These all sites have good project-based implementations. You can try out these sites. They will have a lot of projects.
So the next question is, how should we approach for internships on LinkedIn?
Approach as in?
For internships, like how to apply for internships on LinkedIn.
So I mean, search for companies. See, application process to Google करो भाई. Google पे search वगैरह करो. What you call as just search on Google की कौन सी चीज कैसे होती है, etc., etc. I mean, apply करने में क्या है? Search करो internships, companies कौन सी hiring कर रही है, उसमें jobs का एक section होता है, उसमें सब आ जाता है.
So one question related to startup is, if one wants to come up with a startup that mainly deals with software, what all resources are required?
Yeah, startups dealing with software के लिए software is the last thing you should be worried about, because see, frankly, startup में क्या होता है कि you need to learn things which you don't know. Let's say you are already a programmer, तो तुमको software तो अच्छे से आता है, right? You already know the software piece, so you don't have to learn anything on that. What you need to learn is sales, marketing, hiring, firing, negotiations, what do you call it? Interviews, how to interview people. Customer support, customer acquisition, managing advisors, managing investors, managing incubators. All these things is what you need to learn, because you already know how to program, right? So that's what I would say. It's important to learn topics which you don't know. So if you want to build a tech startup, you have to learn everything except the tech, because tech is something you know. What else?
So how much value does being in IITB's one of the tech team help in seeking tech interns and jobs?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? How much value
does being in IITB's one of the tech team help in seeking tech interns or jobs?
I haven't been in any tech team at IITB, so I can't answer that question. So that means the answer would be that it doesn't help at all.
So I don't think there are any other questions left now. So,
okay.
So thank you, sir, for enlightening us with your knowledge. It was an honor to have you as our guest. I also thank everyone for attending the session. I hope you have gained a lot from this and achieved clarity in choosing right path for yourself. Once again, thank you everyone and have a nice day.
Thank you everyone. Thanks for your time and all the best. Feel free to kind of connect with me on LinkedIn or any other platform. Facebook and LinkedIn, I'm quite active, so you feel free to connect with me. I get quite a lot of requests often, so you can drop me a polite message saying you were a part of this webinar, so that I separately look at your message and connect with you. So other than that, as I said, just to summarize, focus on building skills rather than learning tools and technologies. So your focus should be on building common sense. Your focus should be on building programming aptitude as compared to tying yourself to a tool or technology, and you will go a long way in life. So all the best. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Welcome.
Thank you, Yatin and Tanmay, for organizing this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for being here.
Yeah, bye.